فوخضتها وحدي صبورا مستعينا بالصلاة. كم مرة عصف الأنين بداخلي، كم مرة.
Assalamu alaikum, my dear Muslim brothers and sisters, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today I will be talking about Malki Fiqh, one of the 4 schools of Islamic jurisprudence. My reasons behind this video today, other than a good grounding and introductions to Malki Fiqh, is because I was asked by a non-Muslim what kind of society would Western Muslims like or aspire to in the future if things went smoothly. And here is my articulated reply. Malki Fiqh is the name after its founder Malik ibn Anis, who was a prominent scholar and a jurist in the early Islamic history. It is based on the principles of Quran and the Hadiths, as well as a consensus of the community of believers and the practices of the Prophet's companions and the Prophet himself, peace be upon him. One of the distinct features of Malki Fiqh is its emphasis on the importance of local customs and traditions. It is recognized that the needs and circumstances of Muslims may vary from one place to another, and that local customs and traditions can play a significant role in the interpretation and application of Islamic law. We probably should say just the Sharia. This approach is seen in many practices and relevance to the needs of Muslims in different regions, as it allows for flexibility in the application of the Sharia, whilst still adhering to the core principles. Malki Fiqh is also known for its emphasis on justice, fairness. It seeks to balance the needs of individuals and the community at large, and as a whole, to ensure that the rights of all parties are protected. This emphasis on justice is reflected in the principles of the Sharia, which are based on the principles of fairness, equality, compassion. In terms of practical application, Malki Fiqh covers a wide area of inclusiveness. Things like ritual purity, prayer, financial transactions, contracts, marriages, divorces, criminal law, and the rights and responsibilities of individuals and the community at large. It provides guidance on how Muslims should live their lives in accordance with the teachings of Islam and seek to balance the spiritual and practical aspects of our faith. Malki Fiqh is followed by a significant number of Muslims around the world, many of them inside of North Africa and in West Africa, and some parts of the Middle East. It is one of the oldest and most influential of schools of Islamic jurisprudence, and its principles and teachings continue to be studied and applied by Muslims over the world today. As Muslims living in the UK, it is important for us to understand and appreciate the different schools of Islamic jurisprudence and the way in which they can provide guidance and support in our daily lives. Malki Fiqh is just one of these schools, and its emphasis on local customs and traditions, justice, fairness and compassion approach towards the Sharia makes it a relevant and applicable guide for Muslims in the UK and beyond the UK and the greater Western world. So how about a more in-depth look into Malki Fiqh and its differences from other fiqh schools of thought? Well, then let's go. Malki Fiqh is one of those 4 main schools of Islamic jurisprudence, alongside with Hanifa, Shafi'ah and Hanabi. It is named after its founder, Malik ibn Anis, who was a prominent scholar and jurist of the early Islamic history. He also carries the honorifics of Sheikh of Islam. That's like massive, if you're wondering. Like the other schools of Islamic jurisprudence, Malki Fiqh is based on the principles of Quran and Hadith, as well as the consensus of the community of believers and the practices of the Prophet's companions and the Prophet himself, peace be upon him. It emphasizes the importance of Quran and Hadith as their primary sources of Islamic law and guidance, and seeks to apply these principles in a practiced and relevant way to the needs of the Muslims in different times and places. One of the key differences between Malakite fiqh and other schools of Islamic jurisprudence is its emphasis on the importance of local customs and traditions, whilst others schools also recognise the roles and local customs and their importance and traditions. In this interpretation and application of Islamic law, Malakite fiqh places a greater emphasis on the aspects this approach is, it seems, as most practices and relevant to the needs of Muslims in different regions, as it allows for a flexibility in its application of Islamic law, while still adhering to the core principles at hand of Quran and Hadith. Another key difference between Malakite fiqh and the other schools is its approach to legal precedents. Whilst these other schools give a greater weight on Islamic jurisprudence towards past scholars and their rulings, Malakite fiqh places a greater emphasis on the principles of the Quran and the Hadith first and foremost, to derive most of their legal rulings because of their community-based and what communal customs would be. Principal primary source. So next question I would ask is, by the non-believer, was, how would Malakite fiqh be applied to the UK Muslim community? This was my answer to my noble non-Kafir friend. Malakite fiqh could potentially be applied to the UK Muslim community in a number of ways, depending on the specific needs and circumstances of the community. Here are just a few potential examples I would like to go over. Local customs and traditions, as mentioned earlier, Malakite fiqh places a great emphasis on the importance of local customs and traditions in the interpretation and application of the Shira. This could potentially be useful for UK Muslim community members, as it would allow for a flexibility in its application of Islamic law, which still adheres to its core principles of Quran and Hadith, but it would also essentially allow a relevancy of kind of give or take the UK, which is the diverse and multicultural country with a wide range of Muslim communities. Legal guidance from Malakite fiqh covers a wide range of areas, including finance, transition, and contracts and marriages and divorces, as well as the rights and responsibilities of individuals and the community. It could potentially provide useful guidance to UK Muslims on these specific issues, and could potentially be used as a reference point in the development of Islamic legal services in the UK. Community leadership scholars, jurists trained in principles of Malakite fiqh could potentially serve as leaders and advisories within the UK Muslim community at large. With this support of their information and their knowledge of Islamic law, it would grant the Muslim community a better footground. The educational principles and techniques of Malakite fiqh could potentially be included in Islamic education programs inside the UK as well, helping to educate young Muslims about the differences of the schools of Islamic jurisprudence and their approach to Islamic law. It is important to note that these are just a few potential examples that I've presented today, that there are specific ways in which Malakite fiqh could be applied to the UK Muslim community will depend on the needs, circumstances, traxers, and the community itself. I hope this brief introduction into Malakite fiqh, and 10 minutes is still brief, has been mostly helpful, and that it has sparked your interest in learning more about the important aspects of Islamic tradition. If you have any questions or comments, please do not hesitate to leave them in my comment section below the video as it is. Jazakallah for watching this, and may Allah bless you and give you all your guidance through your journey. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I am the Irish Muslim, and it has been a pleasure talking about the introduction towards Malakite fiqh.